So imagine you're sitting in a project kickoff meeting,
Right.
and everyone around the table is just nodding in agreement.
Oh, yeah, the classic kickoff nod.
Exactly. Everyone is using the exact same vocabulary. And you leave the room feeling incredibly productive, like we are really aligned.
Right.
But absolutely no one is building the same project.
Not a single person.
Yeah. And it's this illusion of shared language, and it is just silently destroying execution across, virtually every industry right now.
It really is.
Because teams don't fail because they lack technical skill or because they aren't smart enough. They fail because of these invisible mechanical breakdowns in how they actually operate on a daily basis.
Yeah, the operational missteps.
Right. We just consistently see these highly talented groups of people drift into complete misalignment. And it happens through a series of these really granular operational missteps.
Yeah.
So we are unpacking the precise mechanics of this drift today. We're going to explore how teams actually define their work and then move into how they communicate that vision.
Which is usually poorly.
Very poorly. And finally, examine how they enforce their actual standards of quality. But, it all begins with that kickoff meeting and that really dangerous comfort of shared vocabulary.
Yeah, because the illusion of shared language it's incredibly dangerous, precisely because it feels identical to progress.
Right. It feels like you're getting things done.
Exactly. In most professional environments, a team will begin discussing a new initiative, and members will just subconsciously use completely different terminology for the exact same project.
Just to keep things moving.
Yes. They do it simply to keep the conversation moving forward. They mistake their own private understanding of the work for a universally shared understanding.
Nobody wants to be the guy who stops the meeting.
Right. Nobody wants to be the person who stops a highly productive meeting to debate vocabulary. Awkward. Defining terms feels tedious, especially when a massive deadline is rapidly approaching.
You just want to get to work.
So everyone assumes they grasp the problem at a high level, and they just borrow whatever term gives them enough internal certainty to continue participating in the discussion.
Well, we see a perfect illustration of this with that product team that was tasked with designing a new customer reporting capability.
The reporting project.
Right. So they entered a planning meeting, and immediately you have four entirely different interpretations emerging based on literally a single word choice.
Yeah.
So let's look at the systems architect first. The architect called the project a module.
Right. And because a module inherently adopts the environment around it, the architect planned to reuse all the existing applications, permission structures, and, the security protocols.
Which is a huge assumption.
It is a very specific technical path. Meanwhile, you have the product manager who called it a platform.
Oh, right.
And a platform must support multiple products and scale infinitely, right? So the product manager just started drafting these massive requirements for entirely separate user management systems.
Completely different scale. And then you have the delivery manager who simply called it a component.
Yeah, just a component.
Viewing it strictly as this one small, easily delegable piece of the current implementation schedule.
Just another ticket in Jira.
Exactly. And finally, the engineers referred to it as a pipeline, which caused them to focus entirely on whether this new capability required its own distinct deployment architecture and data ingestion rules.
They were essentially constructing 4 entirely different projects in the exact same meeting.
While nodding at each other.
Right. And the warning signs were present in every single sentence they spoke. But by calling it a module or a platform or a component or a pipeline, each individual created just enough mental structure to understand their specific portion of the work.
But they miss the whole picture.
Completely. They bypassed the absolute necessity of resolving what the object actually included. Who would use it, who would ultimately own it, and whether it could exist independently of the legacy systems. They were completely lost, but they desperately needed the conversation to continue, so they just papered over the glaring misalignment with synonyms.
So they're essentially looking at the exact same blueprint, but the plumber thinks they're piping a luxury hotel, and the electrician thinks they're wiring a garden shed.
That is exactly it.
And everyone is working incredibly hard, but the second they tried to connect the plumbing to the electrical grid, the entire structure completely shorts out and collapses.
Yeah, that analogy captures the mechanical failure perfectly. The operational fix to this problem, though, it requires extreme discipline.
What do you mean extreme?
Well, when competent people repeatedly use different names for the same new thing, You must immediately stop the conversation.
Just halt the meeting.
Halt it. Don't assume they're having a trivial disagreement about vocabulary. You must define the object's boundaries before anyone is allowed to discuss the work itself.
Oh, okay. So what does that look like in practice?
You have to explicitly establish what the object includes and, more importantly, what it completely excludes.
Right.
You must define who interacts with it daily and who owns its long-term maintenance. And then once those boundaries are set, you give the object one provisional name.
Just one name.
Right, and the name doesn't even need to be perfect. It can be incredibly generic.
Like Project Alpha or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The name is completely irrelevant, but the shared definition attached to that name must be absolute.
Okay, but even if you manage to nail down that shared definition, I mean, you aren't out of the danger zone yet.
Not at all.
Because once a team successfully agrees on what they are building, they immediately encounter an even more dangerous trap.
Yes, they do.
They often fail to agree on why the object should exist in the first place, which leads directly to perfectly functioning bloat.
Perfectly functioning bloat. Building without a clear purpose is a devastating operational failure.
Because you don't know it's useless until it's done.
Right, because it pushes all the heavy lifting regarding ownership and value until after the organization has already paid heavily for development and testing and deployment.
Which is the most expensive part. Exactly. Teams frequently accept justifications such as, management asked for it, or, well, we've always done it this way. Right. But those aren't valid business requirements. They are just commands devoid of context.
Yeah.
When you build under those conditions, you are simply manufacturing long-term liabilities. You're creating things that cost money to build and even more money to maintain without generating any actual value.
Well, consider the engineering team that was tasked with rebuilding an old approval workflow on a brand new enterprise software platform.
Oh, this is a great example.
Right. Management simply demanded feature parity. Just make it do the old one did.
The worst requirement ever.
Yeah. So the engineering team asked all the standard technical questions regarding mandatory fields and approval stages and notification triggers. They mapped the logic perfectly.
They did a good job on paper.
Right. They even meticulously preserved every strange quirk of the legacy system because changing the behavior required finding a business owner to approve the change.
Which is always a nightmare. Exactly. It just seemed too difficult. So they finished the software completely.
It was done.
Done. And it was only when they prepared for the final release that someone asked, well, who actually needs access to this new system?
Yeah, the most basic question.
And they realized they had no user list. Worse, they had no owner.
Nobody wanted it.
No one. This triggered a frantic wild goose chase across departments with senior leadership spending hours trying to identify a business process to justify a product that was already fully developed and ready to launch.
Yeah, they built a digital ghost town.
That's exactly what it was.
I mean, the forms worked flawlessly, the notifications triggered on time, and the logic passed every single automated test.
It was perfect code.
Right. But none of it possessed a fundamental purpose. So the operational tactic to prevent this requires implementing 3 mandatory questions that just must be answered before a single line of code is written or a single design is. First, who is this for? Second, what specific problem does it solve? And third, what structurally changes in the business because this object exists?
I like that third one. What structurally changes?
Exactly. The answers don't need to predict every technical detail, but they must establish a fundamental reason for existence. If no one in the room can answer those 3 questions, development must halt immediately.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
If you're a team lead listening to this right now, halting development to ask existential questions seems incredibly dangerous.
It feels risky, yeah.
In the real world management asked for, it is often the exact and only requirement you get from your superiors.
Right.
So refusing to build something because leadership cannot articulate a pristine philosophical purpose, it feels closely tied to risking your job.
Well, halting development might cause temporary friction with your leadership, absolutely. But you must measure that immediate discomfort against the devastating downstream cost of maintaining purposeless software.
The long-term tax.
Exactly. When you build something without a defined user or owner, the organization still pays for the initial delivery. But the true cost arrives much later, and it stays forever.
Right, because it has to live somewhere.
Yes, security must continuously monitor this new application engineering, must update its dependencies every quarter, and operations must field support tickets for it.
Even if nobody's using it.
Even if nobody uses it. You have effectively created a permanent tax on the organization's resources. So a leader who demands execution without purpose isn't actually asking you to build a product.
What are they asking for?
They're asking you to distribute their confusion into the code base.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, forcing the business to define the value before paying for the construction is the ultimate protection of the company's resources.
So assuming you have the definitions perfectly aligned and you have a clear documented purpose for the work, you still face a massive hurdle.
Oh yeah, the communication hurdle.
Right. You must communicate this vision to the broader team who will actually execute the work. And when leaders attempt this communication, the team's reaction is very often completely misread, which leads to a massive breakdown in trust.
Absolutely. Leaders frequently mistake confusion for active resistance.
Yes.
When a team pushes back on a new proposal, the leader's instinct is to just view that pushback as stubbornness. They assume the team understands the proposal perfectly, but simply refuses to adapt to change.
They just don't want to do it.
Right. Consequently, the leader just repeats the exact same pitch, usually with much less patience and much more detail regarding the financial metrics they care about.
Which nobody else cares about.
Exactly. They fail to realize that the team isn't resisting the leader's actual proposal. The team is resisting a totally different, entirely imagined outcome that was generated by gaps in the leader's initial explanation.
Okay, well, look at what happened with the team lead who proposed moving engineers between different projects to fix utilization issues.
Oh, yeah, that was a mess.
The lead explained the current bottlenecks. He talked about the uneven workloads across departments and how sharing resources would accelerate delivery for the whole company.
Sounds totally logical.
Right, but the engineers immediately pushed back. They asked who would remain accountable to the customer and worried out loud about losing project-specific knowledge.
Because they didn't understand the boundaries.
Right, and the lead grew visibly impatient. He thought they were just protecting their comfortable routines and avoiding hard work. So he explained his utilization metrics, again completely failing to address their underlying panic.
Because the engineers were terrified of outcomes, the leader never actually proposed.
Right.
I mean, one engineer thought permanent project teams were being abolished forever, replaced by this chaotic freelance model.
Which is terrifying.
Totally. Another expected compulsory unannounced rotations every single week, destroying any sense of stability.
Yeah.
A third believed that any project manager could just walk over and poach an engineer without any prior warning.
And none of that was true.
None of it. The team lead simply wanted to provide temporary support for block projects, ensuring the original team kept full ownership and control.
Just a little bit of flexibility.
But because he kept repeating his points about delivery speed and flexibility, he never uncovered their assumptions.
He just kept talking past them.
Every time he spoke, he added new information without ever correcting the false narratives that were actually driving their fear.
Okay, but let's be real.
Okay.
If I am in that meeting and my team keeps pushing back on something I have already explained twice, my patience is completely gone.
It's frustrating, yes.
So how do I actually catch myself in that moment before it spirals? Like, what is the exact operational trigger to recognize you are arguing with interpretations you haven't even heard?
The precise operational trigger is the physical sensation of wanting to repeat your own justification for a second time.
Okay.
The moment you feel the urge to say, well, let me explain this again, you must stop talking.
Just cut yourself off.
Yes, don't defend the idea. Defending the idea only reinforces the adversarial dynamic and makes the team feel unheard. Instead, you must deploy a specific operational framework.
Which is what?
You ask the team, are there any parts of this proposal that you still need more clarity on? And then you must force them to explain back to you what they believe will practically change in their day-to-day work.
Force them to say it out loud.
Exactly. You cannot accept a polite nod or a simple statement of understanding. You must demand they articulate their interpretation of the future state.
So you're begging for the fear.
Your job in that meeting isn't to become frustrated. Your job is to locate the exact gap between what you intended to say and what their anxieties caused them to hear.
Wow, and this breakdown in communication, it doesn't just happen top-down between leaders and their teams.
Oh, no.
It absolutely destroys cross-departmental execution when companies attempt to solve the physical separation of departments simply by scheduling more meetings.
Oh, the meeting culture.
Right. We witness the creation of these massive bureaucratic communication silos that completely halt actual production.
Because specialization within a company isn't the problem.
No, you need experts.
Right, we want designers to design operations to operate and engineers to build.
Yeah.
The operational breakdown occurs when that specialization dictates who is permitted to exchange information.
Ah,
Companies create these rigid processes where handoffs strip away all contextual nuance.
yeah.
They separate the individuals who deeply understand the business problem from the individuals who possess the technical capability to solve it.
By putting like 5 layers of management between them.
Exactly. And then they attempt to repair that structural separation by passing documents back and forth through a series of formalized meetings.
Right. Well, the agonizing loop of the solution design team illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, yes.
They met with operations to define a customer reporting process, but the engineers were intentionally not invited because technical design was deemed a, quote, later phase by project management.
Such a classic mistake.
Yeah, so the designers gathered the requirements, sent them to engineering, and booked a formal playback meeting. The engineers immediately asked, well, what happens when operations corrects a record after the reporting period closes?
A great technical question.
Right, but the designers had no idea.
Of course not.
They had to act as administrative couriers booking another meeting with operations. Operations explained the correction process in detail. The designers went back to engineering.
Just ferrying messages.
Yes. And then engineering asked which specific database system stored the corrected value. And once again, the designers didn't know.
The project completely devolved into an endless cycle of requirement sessions, technical playbacks, follow-up calls, and alignment meetings.
But nothing was getting built.
Zero actual construction had commenced. Everyone was incredibly busy attending meetings about the work.
Right.
The designers were reduced to simple message couriers. Each handoff degraded the quality of the information. I mean, operations provided answers, but they never heard the technical constraints that prompted the engineering questions in the first place.
They didn't know why they were being asked.
Exactly. And engineering received the answers, but they missed the operational nuances that shaped those answers. The meetings themselves became the heavy machinery that kept the communication silos thriving.
It functions exactly as a corporate game of telephone, but instead of the actual words changing, the underlying intent gets stripped away at every single node.
Yes, the context dies.
And by the time the requirements finally reach the engineers, they are just receiving these blind, contextless commands that they are expected to execute without question.
So, to fix this, you must drastically alter who is allowed in the room.
Okay, how?
The granular operational tactic is to bring the absolute smallest complete group into the very first working conversation.
Smallest complete group.
Yes, and a complete group requires exactly 3 specific perspectives. Someone who deeply understands the business problem, someone who can conceptually shape the solution, and someone who actually has to write the code or build the final product.
Just those 3.
Just those 3. You stop designing your corporate calendar around sequential handoffs. I mean, in our example, the endless loop was solved in 5 minutes. When the engineer finally sat on a call with the operator, watched the operator open the live system, and saw exactly where the data was located.
Right, they just looked at the screen together.
Yes. The engineer realized the report didn't even need an immediate update. A technical hurdle that consumed weeks of calendar tag evaporated instantly because the source of the problem and the builder of the solution communicated directly.
Which perfectly links the entire operational chain together. You define the object's boundaries to cure the illusion of shared language. You establish the fundamental purpose to prevent that perfectly functioning bloat.
Right.
You clarify the proposal by testing assumptions rather than repeating metrics. And you eliminate the silos by bringing the builders directly to the problem.
It all builds on itself.
And everything ultimately culminates in the final release. Because that final release exposes a leader's true standard of quality.
A standard is absolutely never what a leader advertises to other managers in a weekly status meeting.
No, definitely not.
A standard isn't found in a polished corporate mission statement. Your standard is the exact condition of the last piece of work you knowingly allowed to ship to a user.
What you actually shipped.
Yes, output always rises or falls to the level of the standard that is actually enforced, not the standard that is merely discussed.
Well, we can trace this right through the internal request portal example.
Oh, yeah, the broken portal.
Right, so a team lead constantly boasted about his team's exceptional attention to detail. Yet when they demonstrated the new portal, only the main workflow functioned correctly.
Barely.
Barely. The error messages were entirely vague, offering absolutely no help to the user. The navigation was wildly inconsistent across different screens. And crucially, a common edge case completely broke the approval flow.
It just crashed.
Yeah. Despite all these glaring flaws, the leader saw that the primary deadline was close, and he approved the release anyway, assuming the users could just work around the broken elements.
We'll fix it later.
Exactly. So operations started using it, the system immediately failed, and employees just flooded the engineering team with support tickets.
Because the users held the team to the exact standard, the leader had falsely advertised. By approving that fundamentally broken release, the team lead trained his engineers better than any motivational speech ever could.
What did he teach them?
He taught them that vague error messages are perfectly acceptable as long as the primary button clicks. He taught them that broken edge cases aren't emergencies requiring immediate attention. And most destructively, he taught them that refinement ends the moment a deadline arrives, regardless of the product's actual condition.
But let's look at the reality of software development here.
Okay.
If we demand flawless perfection before every single release, we severely violate the golden rule of moving fast and delivering value iteratively.
Right.
You cannot polish a product forever. So how do you draw the exact operational line between not good enough and perfect is the enemy of the good?
You draw the operational line based entirely on the friction you are willing to impose on the user.
The friction on the user.
Yes. If a release misses the mark, you must be ruthlessly specific about what must improve, and you must actively protect the time required to do it. Demanding improvement without adjusting the workload is merely pressure without support.
Right, you can't just tell them to do better without giving them time.
Exactly. If you deliberately choose the strategy of ship and iterate brute, you must explicitly document the known gaps, communicate those limitations directly to the users, and schedule the iteration phase on the calendar before the team moves to a new project.
It has to be on the calendar.
It has to be scheduled. If you ship broken software and never actually schedule the iteration, you aren't moving fast. You are simply passing the operational cost of your unfinished work directly to the user.
Wow.
And, if our true standards are defined solely by the friction we are willing to tolerate in what we ship, and our alignment is dictated by our refusal to act as mere administrative couriers of information, well, we really have to look critically at the future of work.
In what way?
Well, as we increasingly rely on automated systems and artificial intelligence to write our requirements, act as our communication couriers, and generate our code, are we actually eliminating these operational frictions, or are we just permanently automating our misalignments at a speed we can no longer control?